Are you worried that if you sell your home, you're going to pick an agent who has no idea what they're doing? Well, after doing hundreds of real estate transactions as both an agent and an investor, the unfortunate truth is that most listing agents are horrible. And I don't want you to end up with a garbage agent, so I came up with these 8 mistakes that homeowners make when they're choosing a real estate agent to sell their home. This is not for buyers. This video is specifically for sellers. So the first mistake is asking friends and family for a recommendation. And I get it. You trust your friends and family, and you probably want to keep business within, the circle. But the truth is, the real estate industry is strange because as a buyer or a seller, you only buy or sell a home once every 5, maybe 7 years. So how do you know whether someone is good at what they do? Now, most people have no idea what a real estate agent should do, so they just judge how that agent did on how they felt throughout the process. Compare that to a deck builder, right? Of course, you want to have a good experience with the deck builder. Did everything go according to plan? Did they communicate well? And most importantly, did they have the finished product? You can see whether or not the deck was built in a way that's pretty. Is it sturdy? Is it sketchy? You can see the product. Whereas with an agent, there is no end product. It's whether or not they got the house sold or they helped you get into a house. Of course, if you bought a house and it turns out to be a really bad house, you're gonna regret it. But if you're selling a house, generally an agent is never gonna be like, actually, I think we could have squeezed an extra couple $1,000s out of those buyers. They're never gonna say that to you. So you're never going to know whether or not that agent did a good job. So if you ask your friends and family, they're just gonna give you a recommendation based on how they felt throughout the process. And I personally am not a big fan of making decisions based off of vibes. So if you're anything like me, you want to know if a real estate agent is good at what they do. And to find out whether or not an agent is good at what they do, mistake number 2 is choosing an agent who has no idea how to market properties. Most agents only market to active buyers. What they'll do is they'll get photos done, and then they will post those photos on the MLS. And then from there, places like Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, they pull those photos from the MLS and post them on their own sites. Now, who sees this? The people who are actively scrolling on their phones looking for houses, right? So it doesn't really benefit you to have a real estate agent do this because it doesn't take much work to go into Google and type in real estate photographer. You can hire a photographer who specializes in real estate for $400. But from there, you could take those photos and go to a flat fee service and only pay the flat fee service like $300 to maybe $1,000. And that will save you, probably tens of thousands of dollars most of the time rather than using an agent. So when it comes to marketing, good marketing sells the property to buyers who aren't necessarily looking. You got the 2 to 5% of people who are scrolling Zillow, Realtor.com, and Redfin. Those people are actively looking to buy. And then up above that, you've got 10 to 15% of people who are considering buying, but maybe they just haven't found the right house yet, or maybe they haven't gotten in touch with an agent. And then up above that, you've got 70% of the population who aren't even considering buying. And you're probably thinking that those people aren't gonna buy my house. So why are we even talking about that? You're wrong. And the reason why I say that is just because someone isn't necessarily looking to buy something, that doesn't mean that they won't. If you're like me, I don't typically scroll on my phone and see an ad for something and buy it, but sometimes I do. And it might sound weird to say this, but people also do that with houses. And actually, we just sold a house in Richmond, Kentucky, Central Kentucky, that was $880,000 sale. Those people had just bought a new home 2 or 3 years ago. They weren't planning on moving at all, but they saw our marketing video and they were like, we gotta go check this property out. And they ended up buying it. So good marketing sells the property to buyers who aren't necessarily looking. Again, you don't need a real estate agent to target that bottom of the funnel people. The last thing I'll say, don't confuse agent marketing with property marketing. If you see agents out there who are always posting videos about themselves or just like doing kind of like comedy skits, is that really selling the property? I don't really think so. And the other thing is, as an agent, when I market your property, it's a win-win for you and I, right? Because if I advertise your house really well, it brings me buyers. All of the people who are interested in your house aren't necessarily going to want to buy your house. That's the truth. Like, just because someone starts their home search with your house doesn't mean they're going to buy it. So if I advertise your house really well, it brings me buyers and it benefits you because it gets so much more attention. And the more attention that your house gets, the more offers that you should get, and hopefully the more money that you'll get with more favorable terms. So marketing is a skill that's worth its weight in gold, but it's really hard to find someone. So if you want me to find you an agent who's an expert marketer, you can go to the link in the description. If not, we'll go on to mistake number 3, which is buying the listing. Now, this is when an agent overprices your home to get the listing, and it happens in 2 different ways. The first one, it's kind of innocent, right? They don't really know what your neighborhood is like. They don't really know what your home is worth, and maybe they overprice it, maybe they underprice it. Hopefully you can pick up on their inexperience. But the second way is a little more nefarious, and that's when an experienced agent comes in and they give you a number that is, 10% higher than what your house should realistically sell for. And those agents are really good at just getting you to sign the listing agreement with them. Now, once you sign the listing agreement with them, it's typically going to be for 6 months, maybe even a year sometimes. They know that they got you locked in for 6 months or a year, and they can start applying pressure to you to drop the price later. So instead of marketing your property really hard, they are just going to apply pressure on you to drop the price, and then eventually, hopefully you do, and they sell your house and earn a commission. Now, I hate that. I really don't agree with it. So just keep that in mind when you're interviewing real estate agents. The fourth mistake is choosing Mr. or Mrs. Popular. This is the agent that has signs all over town. They might be in people's yards, they might be billboards, and it's kind of similar to that first mistake where you ask your friends and family, but instead this is more credible, right? This agent has a whole bunch of listings already, so they must be good at what they do, right? Well, popularity doesn't equal skill set. So just keep that in mind. This all goes back to that second one. Just make sure your agent is going to focus on marketing your property. Mistake number 5 is falling for the golden letter. And the golden letter is agents send out these letters that say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I have a buyer for your home. Would you consider an offer at this time?" And if you're thinking about selling, you better believe you're going to call that agent and be like, "Hey, actually, we were just talking about selling and moving. What's going on? What does your buyer want?" You're opening the door for that agent to essentially turn you into a listing. Sometimes, and we've done this before, where we actually have a buyer for a property, and we'll send out letters to property owners that are thinking about selling their house. And this works really well because we can kind of sometimes put a deal together off market. Most of the time, an agent will send these letters out once or twice a year to everybody in the area that they want to sell houses in. So they're starting this off, your entire relationship off with a lie. And this is a tactic for, again, an agent to get you to sign the listing agreement. This all goes back to that. You got to be careful of the people who are just trying to get you to sign the listing agreement. This also includes people who cold call you. If an agent is out there just doing cold calls to try to get listings, are they really focusing on selling the listings that they have already? Another one is the companies who advertise get an offer on your property. They're typically not the ones that are going to buy your house. They're going to sell it to someone else. Usually those offers aren't going to work for you, the seller, and then they just turn you into a listing. Mistake number 6 is what I call Zillow Roulette. So if you're thinking about selling your home, you're probably also thinking about buying. So you're on your favorite website, Zillow, and you're scrolling through and you see a house that you really, really like. And so you scroll down a little bit further and you're like, schedule a showing. Why not? From there, Zillow collects your information and an alarm goes off, right? Zillow takes your information and sells it to a real estate agent who isn't necessarily the best real estate agent. They're the highest bidder. Zillow is going to sell your information to whoever wants to pay for it. So just keep that in mind. You don't necessarily want to land in a situation where you don't pick an agent intentionally. I think we could sum up this entire video by just saying, be intentional about who you choose. Find the best marketer. But let's move on to mistake number 7, which is choosing an agent who knows nothing about houses. And this is really important when a buyer gets inspections on your house, right? Okay, hopefully you find an agent, you get your house under contract. That buyer is going to usually do inspections, unless your market is really hot, which that isn't the case in a lot of places now in 2025. But let's say that happens, and of course the inspector is going to find something wrong with your home. Now, don't freak out about that. Even new homes, there's always something wrong. Like if there is nothing wrong on the inspection report, that is a big red flag for me, the agent, or I guess the buyer's agent. If there's nothing wrong as the listing agent, I'm really happy about that. But knowing stuff about construction is extremely valuable when it comes time to negotiate repairs. And a perfect example is a house that we just sold in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It was a rental of ours for several years, and it was very clear that the buyer and the buyer's agent knew nothing about construction. And that's because when they got the inspections done, they sent us the repair request. They asked for a new roof. And typically in the repair request, they'll write in, requesting a new roof because of these several items that were in the inspection report. And then from there, they'll attach the inspection report so that way I, the seller, can go back and reference the inspection report and see what is actually wrong. Well, they asked for a new roof. So typically with a new roof, you think it's the shingles, right? That's what I always think. Well, when I pulled up the inspection report, it was not the shingles. The items that they annotated were the fascia and the soffit. This is not the actual roof covering. So if I would have known nothing and just said, okay, let's put a new roof on, and gone to a roofer and said, hey, can you fix this? That would have cost me probably $8,000 to get the new roof, and then an additional $2,400 to fix whatever was in the inspections. Instead, I fixed the stuff that was in the inspections. I did not fix what they asked me to do because they didn't know what they were asking. So that is why it is really important to have a listing agent who knows construction. Let's say that you chose an agent who was awesome. They're an expert marketer. They know construction really well, and you were very intentional about how you chose them. But you didn't avoid this last mistake, which is choosing an agent who is too busy. The reason that's important is they're working with 3 different buyers. They have 3 other listings. What happens when someone calls them from their marketing because they're an expert marketer? Somebody calls them and they can't answer the phone. The reason I bring this up is there was a study done by a really big company, worth tens of billions of dollars. And if somebody responds to an inquiry within the first minute, the chances of that lead converting into a sale increases by 391%. So essentially, if your agent can't answer the phone or doesn't have someone to answer the phone for them, the chances of your house selling because of their awesome marketing goes down by 391%. Now, this is called, in a sales and marketing world, it's called speed to lead, right? If you want to test it, you could call my phone right now. I'll try to do my best to answer it. But it's really, really important that you get someone who can market your property, but attack those leads right away when they come in. So that way they can show the house, they can control the narrative. This is also really important because if they are able to get a buyer to buy your house without a buyer's agent, that will put more money in your pocket as well. And if you're like, I don't really know how to choose an agent who is not too busy, well, you can watch my next video, which is how to choose an agent.